This is about me putting the team in the best position to win. The Dallas Cowboys should draft Michael Penix with the first round with the 24th overall pick.
Welcome into the NFL on Fox podcast. I'm Dave Helman, and we are just one more day away from the 2024 NFL Draft. The drama all starts Thursday night from Detroit. We are here. We have arrived. Hopefully, you're ready. You're as prepped as you can be. If not, never fear. We're not done. We're never done here at the NFL on Fox podcast. We got Bucky Brooks for you today, taking you through one last draft preview to get you ready for Thursday night. And Thursday, have a former NFL head coach, former Panthers and Commanders head coach, Ron Rivera, is coming on to give some truly unique insight on the draft process from inside the war room in the head coach's chair. Really exciting stuff. Looking forward to that. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube channel, NFL on Fox, if you want to catch any of that. And in addition, we've got you covered during the draft. Starting Friday, we got a first round recap. Monday, we're recapping the whole darn thing, all 7 rounds. We got you covered. Go find us wherever you prefer to get your podcasts or on social at NFL on Fox Pod, wherever you prefer to do it. We are there. We will help you get through the most exciting weekend of the offseason. I think that's all the stuff I have to plug. Let's get to the draft talk. One more chat before the draft with Bucky Brooks, all things 2024 NFL Draft. Check it out.
All right, Buck, as always, it's good to see you, man. I will say it's fun to talk draft. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but here as we sit a day away from the draft, I think I've reached the saturation point. Like, are you ready to be done talking and just finally see what happens?
Yeah, I am. I think we all kind of reached that point because it's only so many ways you can scrimmage out all these different ideas. It's only so many times you can play matchmaker when it comes to teams and players. And, like the fun part of what we do on our side is like the mock drafts and those things. But the old school scout in me is, hey, let's get to the season so we can start seeing how these guys are going to play, because that's really what it is. It's about projecting how guys are going to play the next 2, 3, 4 years, as opposed to trying to get it right on draft night, even though in a perfect world, you would like to be right on both days.
Boo, that's so boring. The 2, 3, 4 years. 2, 3, 4 years. That's so responsible of you. But like we gotta make these determinations in the moment, Bucky. That's what this is all about.
It just runs so counter to everything, right? So then it's like, okay, do I want to be right with my mock draft, or do I want to grade this player to be right like down the road? Because I like to do I told you so. Like I told you if you had listened, like, oh, let me pull up the clip and put it out there on the Twitterverse so you know that I was right about this. But the mock draft thing is so crazy because, like, I don't know about you, but I have certain rules when it comes to mock draft. Like, you just can't throw these mythical trades to get your, like, it kind of messes everything up. So I'm a no trade guy when it comes to the mock draft stuff.
Oh, like, so you're like very pure. Very pure.
I'm a purist. Yeah, because those are the picks. Those are the picks that we have in front of us. You got to pick the. That's what you can't just say, oh, I want this guy to go here, so I'm gonna do a mythical trade that I don't know the terms or conditions. I just need to get up to 4 so I can get my favorite quarterback because I need a quarterback.
I will say the whole idea of the trades, it starts to really fall apart like outside the top 6 or so. Cause then, I mean, good God. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know who's going to be there. So yeah, I get your point. I like a little bit of trading though, just to sort of, especially when it's going to happen in a draft like this with so many quarterbacks, which I'm not forgetting about what you just said about your mocks. I'm going to go back. I'm going to ask you for like a mock draft hot take. But before we do that, just thinking about what's going to happen with these quarterbacks, I'm curious from your perspective as somebody who's done this as a scout and a member of the media. Like, is there any part of this week that we should be taking seriously? Like when you're seeing that Jaden Daniels is the betting favorite to go number 2 overall, and there's just there's smoke coming from every direction.
Mm-hmm.
How do you sort of parse through that to figure out how much of that is real and how much of it is BS?
It's hard now. It's really hard. Like you gotta make sure that you're paying close attention to the guys that you trust when it comes to the insiders. Like if Jay Glazer drops a bomb, it's gonna happen. If Peter Schrager sends a little stuff out there, we're gonna follow it. If a handful of other guys do it, yeah. But if it's just on the web, if it's just on the Twitterverse that my people are hearing, it's hard to decipher. One of the things that happens this year is everyone's putting out information, and it's not just like insiders getting stuff from teams, but a lot of times that stuff is fed by agents. So agents are driving the process. They're kind of changing the narrative, kind of putting guys in certain places, and so you have to be really, really careful when you take that information and run with it. I will say this though, as we get closer to the draft, the information becomes more accurate. When we get to about Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, the information that you're hearing then is more likely to be true. All the other stuff that we've heard the past week, people are guessing and speculating. But as we get closer to the draft, that's when people begin to get real hard, concrete information because everyone's not kind of just blowing smoke. They're beginning to kind of tell you, okay, here's what I think is really about to happen.
Let me ask you this, and it's such a fascinating component of this. Like, I mean, you evaluate players, you've done it for a living for a long time, you know ball. You are also plugged in this community, and I'm always curious about the difference between, well, these are the quarterbacks that I like the most. You know, this is my top 4. But this is what I'm hearing. And, you know, one of those is like, you got to choose which you value over the other of like, this is how I see it versus me as a member of the media. This is what I'm telling you, I think is going to happen on Thursday night. You go, like, you talk about, I told you so, and sort of being right about your evaluations. Like, how do you balance that of your own evaluations being proven to be correct versus what the NFL is actually going to do?
Okay, so that's the difference between, I would say, like top 5 list or big boards and mock drafts. So in theory, the way that it should be, your opinion is baked into top 5s and how you rank the players 1 to 32, 1 to 100, or whatever. Like that is your opinion. That's what you put your name on. Mock drafts to me are what I'm hearing. I don't necessarily agree with it, but this is what the streets are saying. These guys may come off in that. So to me, is what you're hearing that falls into the mock drafts. What you're seeing, that's how you rank the players. And ultimately, for me, I value a lot of what I'm seeing. My top 5s, my list, my 1 to 100 or whatever that is. I put a lot of value in that. Mock drafts and stuff are fun because they're conversation starters, but it's a guessing game, just like everyone else is participating in the guessing game.
Do you have a final prediction for the order that these big 4 quarterbacks go in?
Oh yeah, look, I think it's gonna go as we thought it would go at the beginning of the process. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, long pause, then JJ McCarthy. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all coming off the board like hotcakes. My sense is the closer we get to the draft, the more people are doing the hold on, wait a minute. Do I really see JJ McCarthy as a top 5 pick? Do I really see him as a transcendent type player? Well, if I don't see him as that, am I really going to give up draft capital to get up there? Because what's going to happen, I'm now giving up assets to get a player that when we bring him into the building and we put him out on that field, that first mini camp, we can be like, oh man, I don't know if he can get us beyond a certain level. And so I think that's the fear, and I think that's why you'll see the conservative nature come back.
It is amazing inside the facility how quickly draft excitement can turn into like kind of scratching your head like once a guy gets out on the practice field. Like, not in every instance, but I know from my own experience, like it can happen sometimes where before you even get to training camp, a team is like, ooh, did we over evaluate this guy a little bit?
It's the biggest fear. It's the biggest fear that you have as a scout. Like somebody that you have been pounding the table. You're like the biggest advocate. Like, hey, we gotta take him. I'm telling you. And then that first mini camp, they run onto the field, and you look at a couple reps, and you're like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know. And so It happened. It happened. I think I was in Seattle. We drafted Chris McIntosh from Wisconsin, and I think we took him in the first round pick. And Helman, it wasn't long that everyone knew. Now he got injured, so to be fair, it might have changed.
That's part of it. A lot of the time, that's part of it.
The injury might have saved us from having a little egg on our face, but it wasn't great. It wasn't great when he first walked out.
I was gonna say, when you have a draft like that or a pick like that, like, are you stealing some time to update the old resume, like in between practices and stuff like that? Like,
I mean, you're hoping that your grade isn't all the way locked. You're hoping that maybe you can add an extra line to the report to kind of be like, I mean, I said that, but at the bottom, that's kind of what I meant. But now it can be difficult because it is a guessing game, and so much of the evaluation process and how it plays out is really how do they fit into the scheme where they land? Like, how do they fit when it comes to the coaching, the environment, the system that they play in? A lot of times, I would say 85% of the league are system players. They're 15% of the league that you can put them in anything and they'll have success. But the overwhelming majority of players have to be in the right system where their strengths are highlighted, the system really puts them in a point where they can kind of showcase their talents. But if you land in the wrong system, I mean, it can be detrimental to the career.
that's actually that translates really well to like the meat of what I want to talk to you about, which a lot of these guys, you can come up with a pretty good guess of where some of these guys are going to go, particularly like at the top of the first round. But there are a handful of prospects that I'm so curious about, because you could talk me into them going top 10. You could talk me into them falling out of the first round entirely, and everything in between. So I just want to pick your brain about a few very noteworthy prospects. And because of what we talked about off the air, I think we have to start with Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. Because I've been saying throughout the draft process, I could see him going anywhere between 10 and 50. So I'd be curious if you could help me nail down a ceiling and a floor. And also, we're gonna get to your hot take here about Michael Penix in a minute.
Michael Penix. So Michael Penix, to me, ceiling is 13 to the Raiders. I would say floor, we're thinking 43, 44 Atlanta Falcons in the mix. Look, if not for the injuries, this dude is everything that you want in what I call a vertical-based passing game. He throws the best deep ball in the draft, and that's including Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and those guys. He has a fearless mentality. He's a bit of a gunslinger in terms of like he is attacking the deep part of the field. And when you play against a quarterback that attacks with the deep ball, it forces you to change the way that you call defenses. You got to back up. So that means you have to concede a bunch of stuff underneath. Deadly accurate on those things as well. The thing that you don't see from Michael Penix is everyone went crazy over the workout, right? 4.46, big hands, athletic, and moves around. He doesn't show that on tape. Now, is this a situation where he was like, I'm going to be tied to the pocket because I want to show people that I can play from the pocket? Or does he have that extra dimension in his bag? The scary thing for me is I remember everyone overlooking certain parts of CJ Stroud's game because he didn't run around. And so they dinged him. And I'm just looking at Michael Penix and I'm wondering, is he the one that we're sleeping on? Of all the quarterbacks, is he the one? Because when you watched him play those last 2 years at UW, everyone will talk about the supporting cast. But I also know that Jaden Daniels had a great supporting cast at LSU. Those wide receivers at Washington, I mean, he put it right in their hands. He made their game very, very easy for him. He's a really good quarterback. In the right system, I think the dude has a chance to be a star.
If he falls, let's say he falls into the 40s, you think it's purely because of his injury history, or is there an on-tape element of his game that gives you pause?
I think the on-tape element of the game that makes you pause dovetails into the injury concerns. Everyone would point to the Michigan game, and the Michigan game where he was a little off the mark, and he didn't play like he played the previous game against Texas, where he just shredded Texas, carved him up with surgical precision. Michigan, they got to him and they hit him. My vantage point, when they hit him, he changed. Now, most quarterbacks change if you get to him, but I felt like he changed. And because he got touched up a little bit, I felt like, the ribs were a little tender. It kind of changed his game. So if anything, I would say that under duress, under pressure, can he stand in the storm? Can he stand under a barrage of like big hits and just kind of continue to uh, deliver? But there's so much good tape on Michael Penix where in shootouts with Bo Nix carves him up. Like 11 games they played against top 25 teams when he was at UW, 10-1. I mean, I know people don't like the quarterback win stat, but the job of the quarterback is to win games, and he certainly won a lot of games at UW.
I do think it matters in college football where a top tier quarterback can make that much of a level of difference. Like if a guy that's going to start on Sundays plays quarterbacks for you in college, you should win a lot of big games. Typically, I know. I mean, maybe that doesn't apply across the board.
But then that goes to my argument about Drake May, and this pains me.
I
Like it would pain you.
I hear you. I get it.
I don't have a signature game for my guy. Like, and sitting there, and maybe I watch too many games. If I have to tell you that the notable win that he has on his resume is Duke, that's not going to really get you excited, even though Duke has come a long way. But that's the signature win. Miami, but Miami's a 500 team basically. So that is the thing. And people will talk about like didn't have the weapons and all of that. But at some point in college, much like high school, when you're the best dude on the field, you fall into some wins on your own accord.
I do think the natural rebuttal to that is Mr. Mahomes was on a lot of 7-5 teams at Texas Tech, but he was the best player in a lot of those games. He just didn't have a ton of help around him when he was going up against the Oklahomas of the world.
And that's a great thing because Mahomes is the outlier. Now, no scout will admit this, but I have texts and notes in my phone where I talk to all these scouts about Pat Mahomes, and they all said, "Wow, unbelievable player, sandlot player, great arm, this and that." Never seen it work in the league.
Oh yeah,
that was the common. That's the common thing. I'm talking about my guys that I lean on. They say, "Hey man, look, he's great. He's sandlot." I've never seen this translate to success in the league. But going back to the point that we talked about, system players. He's a remarkable player that landed in the right system for him. And I would say, really, the system is Andy Reid's creativity and brilliance. I don't know if Pat Mahomes works at the same level if he goes elsewhere. So that's the thing. And so maybe like Josh Allen with Brian Daboll, like it's the same thing. It's really important where they land.
It's the essence of what makes this so fun. Before we move on from Penix though, like this, and the reason I think I honed in on it is you're not the first person I've heard suggest this, but in trying to find a landing spot for Michael Penix Jr., you had a very interesting suggestion for a team that could potentially use him.
Okay, so if you take the ego out of it, right? If we talk about it being business, and if everyone operates, and I don't think all general managers operate on like, hey, this is business. This ain't about feelings or whatever. This is about me putting the team in the best position to win. The Dallas Cowboys should draft Michael Penix with the first round with the 24th overall pick. And it is it makes sense because Dak Prescott, final year of his deal, he is going to command on the open market $60 million annually. Regardless of what you think and how good he is or whatever, like there's only a handful of players that can give you 60. In fact, there's only one quarterback that I would pay $60 million annually to, and that would be Pat Mahomes. Mm-hmm. So if you're Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, you got to think about who's going to be our next quarterback because Dak is not going to give you a hometown discount. You made him earn every contract that he has had. And maybe if you had done a little differently early on the front end, maybe he would give you a discount on the back end. But because you made him play on the franchise tag, he was the 4th round pick, you didn't sweeten the deal until you absolutely had to. Now Dak Prescott is like, oh, no, you're going to pay me. So if that is what we're looking at, you're Jerry Jones, you're Mike McCarthy, who is known as a quarterback developer. Okay, who's the guy that would fit what we want to do? To me, Michael Penix would be that guy. You take him first round this year, you have an opportunity to redshirt him while Dak Prescott plays out the last year of his deal, and then 2025, Michael Penix.
It makes so much sense in a vacuum, but that's what is so strange about this Cowboys offseason They kept McCarthy. They didn't extend him. So McCarthy's fighting for his job. Dak is fighting for a new contract. They didn't do anything to improve the team in free agency. So now you're in a situation where you're saying, if we're going to be better this year, we've got to nail this draft class. And then you go out and spend the first round pick on a quarterback. Like, it makes sense for the Dallas Cowboys, but can you imagine being Mike McCarthy or Dak Prescott and seeing that and saying, okay, so what's the goal for 2024? What are we doing here?
Yeah, that's funny because I have a lot of Cowboys fans as friends, and I would say right now, the way this team looks on paper compared to what the team was last year, they're taking a step back. If they get 12 wins out of this team as it's presently constructed, that would be one of the best coaching jobs that Mike McCarthy has done. Because right now they don't have the firepower to be able to do it. Not only in the backfield, up front, it's a bit of a mess. Defensively, you lose Dan Quinn and Joe Witt, which is a big loss. Like, this is not the same team. So we're counting on Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy to be at their best with the pressure of knowing is win or go home. That's a lot. So yeah, it's fantasy, it's pie in the sky stuff. But if the team really had a long-term vision, they should take a quarterback this year, or they really should have taken a quarterback last year. But this is the year where they take a quarterback and then they have a quarterback in the hopper, because as much as we talk about Trey Lance and he's there doing his thing or whatever, like, you got to have someone in line, because if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you don't have a chance.
And Trey Lance is also in the last year of his deal, assuming the Cowboys aren't going to pay him $23 million on the 5th year option, which I really don't think they're going to do. So Trey Lance is a nice idea, but no 100% guarantee that he's on your team next year either. It makes a lot of sense, but I have a hard time believing Jerry Jones would play for the big picture like that. But man, I think that would lead every NFL draft story in America on Friday if it were to happen on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely make it interesting. It would create a level of tension within the building. But sometimes tension is good. Sometimes you get the best performance when everyone is a little.
You sound like
uptight.
Jerry Jones, Buck.
Every time, like a little tension. Hey, trying to bring out the best in the team. Look, we saw how, and I say this, after Jordan Love landed in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers won 2 MVPs. Prior to Jordan Love being drafted, Aaron Rodgers was declining. Just look at the stats. He was a declining player. Jordan Love comes in, pokes the bear a little bit. Aaron Rodgers' game turns around. Look, pressure's good.
This is insane, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh, is it crazy enough to work? And that is often how I think Jerry Jones looks at things. So I can't rule it out completely. That's, I mean, something to watch. I would be shocked, but it would be a very entertaining story. All right, I want to get your thoughts on a few more of these guys. Another one that's really interesting to me, you hear so much about how unique Brock Bowers is. Most people see him as a top 8 talent in this draft, but the positional value makes it interesting. So I'm curious, ceiling and floor, how high versus how low do you see this guy going?
I would say 10 to the New York Jets. To me, the floor, man, it's hard for me to think that he would get past the Cincinnati Bengals at 18. But 18 or 19. So you got them, and then you have the Rams at 19. I think somewhere in there. He doesn't get into the 20s. The reason why 10 is compelling, Aaron Rodgers, just imagine having a weapon over the middle of the field to go with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is phenomenal as a route runner and playmaker. They are going all in on a win now. Just the number of easy completions that Brock Bowers would amass, just being the big target right over the middle of the field, sitting at the sticks. He's a terrific player, and I love tight ends, but we have seen tight ends taken at the top have not been able to kind of give us what a lot of us expected. Kyle Pitts didn't really do it back in the day. Eric Ebron didn't do it. It just hasn't produced what we thought it would produce. But Brock Bowers, in that situation with Aaron Rodgers, I think he easily walks into 50 catches, 750 yards, and a bunch of touchdowns.
It's interesting to think that so many of the teams that might want Brock Bowers also seem to have an offensive line need. And when you think about how many good tackles there are, like if he falls, I would imagine that's just because the Jets, maybe the
Mhm.
Bears, thinking about the Bengals, maybe all say, yeah, I mean, he's great, but we need somebody to protect this quarterback even more.
Yeah, I can see that. And that's the thing about like draft boards, right? So you have two draft boards in a meeting room. You have the vertical board where you rank players from 1 to 125, right? So no matter how they are, you just pluck them. Hey, these are how I believe the guys are from best to the worst of our allotted number. Then you have the horizontal board where you have everyone by position. The thing about the horizontal board, you can have Brock Bowers sitting at the top of a line, like in the middle of round one. And then you could have Olush Fashanu also with the middle of the first round grade. Then, as a team builder, you got to make a decision which one is best for our team right now. So, need kind of factors into that. We can say that they're close. Hey, maybe Bowers has a grade just a little bit ahead of Fashanu, but man, we really need a left tackle. So then you go with Fashanu. A lot of teams could be tasked with that. Hey, man, I love Brock Bowers, but man, if we don't have a tackle, we can never protect long enough to get the ball to him. That's where you have to scrimmage and kind of miss and match, where you can end up with a Brock Bowers, a very talented player, landing in the teens when he should be regarded as a top 10 talent.
Fair to say, too, that 32 different teams answer that question 32 different ways. Just when you consider, some places it's the GM with all the power, some places the coach runs the show, some places the ownership's more involved than others. Like there's no unified way to come to that decision.
No, it's not a unified way. So then it becomes who has control of the roster and who has the long-term vision for the team. In a perfect world, the GM thinks long-term, the head coach thinks here and now. The GM should be able to overrule and say, hey, for our team to be consistently competitive, we should probably take the left tackle because he's going to give us like stability for the next 10 years at that spot. The head coach is thinking, man, if I had a tight end that can come in right now, we run our 12 personnel packages and yada, 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 it changes it. And that's why you want to have a front office that has some checks and balances to kind of prevent people from just being short-sighted when it comes to decision making.
I can't wait to see if the Jets take him, because if they do,
It's
it
short-sighted. We're going right now, but I
yeah,
mean,
it's just the
but
most obvious example of we're playing for 2024.
well, like, so here's the thing: we talk about head coach and general manager checks and balances. This is one where Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh closed the door. Like, hey, man, if we don't win, we both gonna be out of here.
Yep.
So we'll fix next year. Next year, but we got to figure out how to win right now to extend our opportunity to stay in New York. That's why I believe that you can see Brock Bowers come off the board because they could be like, "The hell with it. We can get fired anyway." I'm I'm gonna go ahead and do it my way. I'm trying and see if we can kind of extend the little window.
The classic case of next year potentially being somebody else's problem and not theirs. All right, this next one is a great example of what I'm talking about with like the last week smoke screens and just the stuff that you start hearing. So we all know Byron Murphy out of Texas is a great player, widely seen as the best defensive tackle in this draft class. But then the week of the draft rolls up, and now you're hearing a lot of talk that he could be the first defender off the board. He could be a top
Mhm.
7, 8 pick in this draft. I'm curious how much of that you buy. And again, like if he goes how high, or how far could you see him falling?
I could see him going as high as number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. I
Mhm.
could see Raheem Morris looking at Murphy and understanding how much Aaron Donald impacted the defense by being an interior type pass rusher. I can see him coming off the board at 8. Look, I can see him going all the way down to the 20s, 23, Minnesota Vikings. Like just kind of like people electing to take like a tackle or pass catcher, and he just kind of corner, and he kind of finds himself in the 20s. Good player, urgent athlete, has some of that ASAP ability. Like he gets off the ball, and he is right now. He's coming. He has strength, power, explosiveness. He has finesse. He's just a really dynamic and impactful player. It's just a matter of what are you looking for? Are we looking for that guy? And I will say this: he will benefit from the fact that it's a shallow pool at defensive tackle. When I look
Mm.
at the top defensive tackles, it's him and Johnny Newton. Then you have a divide, and then you got Fisk from Florida State. You have Dorless from Oregon. I mean, somewhere Devondre Sweat is in it, but then he had the character issues away
Right.
from the field. So you don't have a lot. And so when you don't have a lot, that normally means they go earlier rather than later.
Do you think Newton is the only other DT that has a chance to go on Thursday night?
I think so. I think he's the only one. Like, I would be surprised if another one goes in that. And a lot of it depends on how do you cast Darius Robinson. Like, do you see him as an outside
Yeah.
player? Do you see him as a twinner? He played the early part of his career at Missouri inside, then he bounced outside. So how do you see him? I think he plays like Cam Jordan was utilized at Cal, which makes it hard, kind of like a five technique, but you don't really know. But he's the only other one. I think it's those two, and then it's a little gap before you get to another one.
How many different things do you think Byron Murphy can do? Like, and just in terms of, talking about playing three technique, playing the nose, being a block eater, being a penetrator and a pass rusher. Like, how many of those real roles do you think he can fill?
Uh, I think he can be an occasional nose. I wouldn't love it if he had to play that role. I want to put him in a three technique and I want to let him go. I can just see him being a guy that is freed up to just go play in a one gap penetration system where they're like, hey man, stop the run on the way to the quarterback. Uh, his ability to just come off the snap and dominate his arm overs, all this stuff. He has the stuff that you can create splash plays. I want to give him every opportunity to create those tackles for losses, sacks, forced fumbles.
I'm literally looking at the draft order and just seeing about 8 teams that could probably use a pass rushing defensive tackle, mainly just because very few of those guys come out of every single draft class.
No, you don't. You don't see it. You don't see guys that can do it and can do it in a hurry. He has that ability, and he's different than some of those other guys.
So 8 shouldn't be a stretch. That's not
I
something
don't.
that should surprise us.
No, I think, yeah, I think eight is kind of like the perfect thing because he is the best at what he does. I would say this. It depends on, everyone has kind of just gotten comfortable putting Dallas Turner in that spot at eight. I think
Myself
the
included,
pass,
guilty as
yeah,
charged.
I think I think the pass rusher debate is interesting when you put uh, Turner, uh, Latu, and Verse all together. I think it becomes an opportunity to go to the ice cream shop and to figure out what flavor do you like. If you like all power all day, that's Jerry Verse. Quick tempo, quick twitch, all that, but he's a power player. And when I mean power player, I want people just to envision he's going to play the game in a way that's reminiscent of how Khalil Mack plays. It's power. I'm overrunning you. I'm not winning necessarily with finesse moves. I'm just running over top of you to get to the quarterback. In Dallas Turner, I think it's more speed, finesse, turn the corner. I'm winning. I jump the snap. I get around you. I dip and rip and those things. So I think Brian Burns, like how Brian
Hmm.
Burns kind of accumulates sacks, just kind of speeding around the edge. To me, the best pass rusher is Laiatu Latu. Because when I look at Latu, he has the total package. And I say this because I'm jaded, right? So in my past, like on defense, I played with Reggie White, Derek Thomas, Bruce Smith. Like I've seen what those guys do and how they impacted. I was in
Mhm.
Carolina right after they drafted Julius Peppers. When I look at those guys, all of those guys had toolboxes that had a lot of tools. When I look at Latu, Latu can give it to you however you want. You want speed and power? Cool. You want me to come from a 3 point? Great. 2 point? Great. Inside? Got that too. Spin and burst? Got it. Play with effort? I got it. You want me to play with technique? I have it. And when you talk to him, because I had a chance to talk to him, he can articulate his game plan when he's rushing. That is an I would say that is an underrated part of a great pass rusher. Everyone can go out there and out athlete people, but can you say, "Oh no, here's what I'm doing. I'm coming off the ball. I'm putting my hand right in the middle of his chest. He reacts to this. I'm coming that." He has all of
Well, you just read my damn run sheet back to me because
that.
Laiatu Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA, was going to be my next player. And look, I know he's a hell of a player, but I do think this is a guy that had quite a few medical issues during his college career, and I think if there's something that makes him hard to
Mhm.
figure out, maybe it's that. So
Oh, it
clearly,
is.
you love the player, but how high do you think he can go, knowing that teams are going to have a close eye on that?
Man, seeing that every 32 different doctors and medical teams looking at it, he's not going to be on some boards. He will be on other teams' boards. And you got to mitigate the risks. So I'm saying of those three, he may be the last one taken of those three, but ends up being the best player. And we're doing, oh my God, I can't believe he was picked 24. Like, they're such idiots. But no, the medical thing is a major concern. He was medically redshirted, medically retired at UW. But I'll say this. Do you know who the former head coach at UW was?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I do know, but
Jimmy Lake.
Yeah, yes.
Do you know what Jimmy Lake is doing right now?
I have a feeling you're about to tell me.
He's the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons.
That's very interesting, Bucky. That's very interesting. See, this is the type of league-wide insight that you ask for. But okay, so do you, and I know we can't answer this scientifically. Like you said, there's 32 different medical staffs, but do you think the tape is good enough to outweigh that? Like, if you're talking about drafting him 8th overall,
tape is really good. Tape is really good. 23 sacks, 33 and a half tackles for loss. I mean, dominant splash plays against USC this year. Dominant. I mean, coming off the edge is easy. First snap quickness. I mean, he has a lot of tools. So that's the thing. It comes down to the doctors. It comes down to the medical report. Because if the medicals are clean, in my mind, we're talking about a top 5 player. If the medicals are clean, because his get off, his snap, all of that, I think that could lead you to look at the other guys. And I'll say this about Dallas Turner, and I don't want to beat him up. I think he's a really good player. I think he's quick. He's explosive. To me, I just feel like Latu has a little more. And if I would slot him in order, it would be Latu, then Turner, then Verse. Verse is a power player. I think he's a little stiffer than the other guy, but
I think the common opinion, just looking around the draft world, is Latu could fall, but it wouldn't be any further than like 24, 25. Do you agree with that? Or like, is it at all possible he falls out of the first round, or what do we think?
To me, if he's falling, it would be the classic Baltimore Ravens pick. Hey, we don't need one, but hey, you know what? He just kind of like, oh, T-Sizzle. What? You didn't have a good pro day? Oh, all right, we'll just take the good football player. Cal Hamilton, I know you ranked second. You had a slow pro day, but man, the tape was great. So, hey, 14, we'll take you. Like,
that tracks.
To me, that's what it'd be. Like, we would be looking like, oh, great. The Ravens take him at 30. Perfect.
The Ravens getting him at 30 after everybody agreed he's like top 15 on tape alone would be very Ravensy. I'm going to have an eye out for that now. All right, let's wrap up with a favorite of mine, and not just because he came on the show. I generally just love watching the guy play. I'm curious what you think of the range for Ladd McConkey, the Georgia receiver. I firmly believe he has a real shot to go in the first round. Like, I don't think that's a bold take because I've seen it in a few places, but it seems like he gets forgotten about, and I'm just not going to be surprised if I hear his name on Thursday night.
I think this is a meow moment, right? We talk about, I think we talk about the pet cats. Let me say this. So I have 2 guys that I am like crushing on, like 2 that I'm taking in the kennel. Like, we're just going. So Ladd McConkey is one. Like, when you just watch him play, and had a chance to talk to him, and he was just talking about being in the silver britches at Georgia, and just like he country is corn, but man, you just watch him run routes, and he has all that stuff. And I know people, because I said, like, look, man, this dude is the best slot receiver in the draft. They're like, he didn't even play but like 15, 30 snaps in the slot. I was like, just look at the skill set. Like, this dude runs routes. This dude gets open. And I've been like, who is this dude that's stepping away from all of these defenders in the SEC? And it's not just from last year. You know how you catch clips? You're like, hey, man, receiver from Georgia, who's the white cat that is running away from everybody? And he has a little. So Ladd McConkey is that dude. Like, for years, I've been like, hey, who is this cat? So he's one. And then when I go to the other side, Cooper DeJean from Iowa is the other one, right? And he is the classic guy that you show up at a camp, like these little high school camps, and everyone doesn't know the bio, right? And then you read the bio, he's like long jump champion in Iowa. He got these ridiculous times in the 100 and 200. You're like, man, who's in the corner? And then he's over there just doing everything. But when you watch him on tape at Iowa, it's not just like the athleticism, it's the IQ, because he plays outside, he plays in the slot, he's a safety, he returns kicks, he puts it in the paint, he picks off passes. To me, it reminds me of when I looked at Eric Weddle when he was at Utah. And I didn't have enough courage to be like, hey, man, Eric Weddle is like nice. Like, I should give him a big grade, but like, can I? He's at Utah. Like, how fast is he? And then you look up in the league, Eric Weddle is always around the ball. He makes a ton of plays as he goes from the Chargers to the Ravens and finishes with the Rams. To me, Cooper DeJean has some of that stuff in his game.
I don't want to hear anybody on Thursday or Friday, whatever. I don't want to hear Gym Rat or Scrappy. I don't want to hear that get said about Cooper DeJean or Ladd McConkey because it's nonsense.
I mean, why not throw Ricky Pearsall in there? They give me all of them. Give me all. I got Ricky Pearsall. I got Ricky Pearsall going in there.
It's a big year. It's a big year for the white skill player, Bucky. It's a big year.
Give me the Backstreet Boys. I got the Backstreet Boys against everybody. You give me Cooper DeJean, Ladd McConkey, and Ricky Pearsall. We're going. We're making.
Okay, so I mean, you might not be the right guy to ask because you're clearly biased, but like, I mean, do you expect to hear Ladd's name on Thursday, or are we thinking like top 40?
I think so. Well, look, I think for sure he's gone like top 50. He's gone by the middle of the second round. I think at the bottom of the first round, two teams that stand out to me: San Francisco 49ers, Kansas City Chiefs. San Francisco 49ers because he strikes me as the type that Kyle Shanahan would fall in love with. Route runner, high IQ, can do a bunch of different things. Really good with the ball in his hands. You saw the jet sweeps and all that other stuff at Georgia. He makes it happen when he gets it in the thing. So he fits there. And then in Kansas City, I just think they're looking for the trusted playmaker that they can just count on. Like, hey, man, we're going to put this dude out there. He's going to run all the right routes for Pat. He's going to be where he needs to be. I don't have to worry about him. Like, he's going to be that dependable dude. So I can see those two teams at the bottom of the first round being in the mix.
I can't wait to tweet you a link to a Backstreet Boys song on Thursday night when we see where this is all going to go down. It's going to be great.
I love it. You know, it'd be better. They need to go back to back. If they get picked back to back, let them get picked back to back, and then we just put the Backstreet Boy album up.
You know, hey, I could see it happening. I mean, you know, maybe the Niners wind up trading Ayuk. Maybe they got some capital to play with. You can't rule anything out. Bucky, I love talking to you, man. I'm so excited to finally know the answers to this stuff and not have to speculate with you. But I had a hell of a lot of fun doing it anyway. And if even one or two of the things we just talked about happens, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. So we'll see how it all shakes out. I'm sure we'll check in with you when it's over. But one more time, man, it's been such a blast having you on to preview the draft, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about how it all finishes up.
Yeah, hold on. Is that an Emmy back there? Is that an Emmy that
Yeah. You don't know about that?
It's like a little humble brag. Like I'm the whole time I'm looking, I'm like, I see a football here. I'm like, is that an Emmy? I don't take myself very seriously, but I like to have that there just so people know I'm not a total screw up. Like, I've done some good things in my career, even if I do like to joke around and have a good time talking about the Backstreet Boys. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna tell you, like, one of my best friends in football, like when I was coming up, he made the Pro Bowl his rookie year. And I was like, oh, he said, doesn't matter. For the rest of my life, they got to call me Pro Bowler. So for the rest of your life, they got to be like the Emmy Award-winning Dave Helman joins us.
That's right. You're saying all that. I'm not even saying it. You're saying all of that, which I do appreciate.
So on your tombstone, you got to make sure that when you're on speak or whatever, you got to make sure they font you correctly in your word.
I'm absolutely petty enough. Bury me with my Lone Star Emmy. Oh man, this was really fun, Buck. I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy time of year, but we'll check in with you soon, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Talk to you.
Thanks one more time to my guy, Bucky Brooks. Always so much fun talking draft with him. Not quite done with the pre-draft content. Like I said, I'm excited for this one. Make sure you drop by on Thursday. We're going to be talking to former NFL head coach Ron Rivera about draft night, about the draft process. Not every day you get a chance to get insight from somebody that's been part of those conversations, that sat in those rooms on draft night. I'm looking forward to that. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you subscribed on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube at NFL on Fox. Wherever you do it, we've got some good content coming your way. Don't forget, Friday, we'll be recapping the first round. Monday, we'll be recapping the entire draft. Don't miss a minute of it. It's the best weekend of the offseason. I'm really looking forward to it, and I will talk to y'all so soon, Thursday to be exact. As always, I really appreciate it. I'll talk to y'all next time.